Thank you so much for watching Landumc Goes There. Please subscribe and hit the like button and the bell notification button. The Professionals is a 1966 American Western film that was written, produced, and directed by Richard Brooks. It stars Burt Lancaster, Lee Marvin, Robert Ryan, Claudia Cardinale, with Jack Palance, Ralph Bellamy, and Woody Strode in supporting roles. It was adapted from a 1964 novel called A Mule for the Marquesa by Frank O'Rourke. The movie, which was shot in Technicolor, was filmed in Death Valley, Valley of the Fire, and around Coachella Valley in California. The rail scenes were filmed on Kaiser Steel's Eagle Mountain Railroad. The storyline goes that a rich Texan named J.W. Grant selects 3 men and invites them to his private train to offer them a contract. That contract being to rescue his wife, who has been kidnapped by a Mexican revolutionary. The leader of the men, Rico, decides that it would be a better team if Grant would hire one more man, that being an explosive expert. Grant quickly agrees, and soon the 4 are off to complete their contract. But while on the trail, they discover some really interesting facts, like, has Miss Grant really been kidnapped at all? It's said that Burt Lancaster, at 52, insisted on doing his own stunts for the movie. Due to the camera angles and the lack of full facial lines of sight during the stunts, it's really doubtful that this bit of trivia is indeed fact, and is probably actually more legend. The rock climbing scene, in which Lancaster wires dynamite to take out a pass, a stuntman is likely used for this climb because of the way it was shot. It's said that most of the actors on the set, although they were up there in age, really wanted to do most of their own stunts. I think they kind of got into a pissing match. But it's really hard to tell how much was actually done by the actors themselves. The one thing we do know is that Woody Strode performed all of his own stunts, as there were no black stuntmen who came close to his height and stature. Jack Palance had to give in and use a stunt double for the scenes where he is wounded and he falls off his horse, because falling the wrong way off of a horse could lead to some serious injuries, and the studio was having none of that. Lee Marvin is always the highlight of a film. He took it upon himself in this movie to keep the guns that were used in the film nice and clean from the unpredictable desert conditions that they were in. The producer of the film said that Lee Marvin's opening scene, in which he demonstrates a machine gun, was the only time that he filmed a scene and he was completely drunk. The rest of the movie, it's said that he shot most of his scenes sober. I find that hard to believe. He always had a drink before he filmed anything, and not just one, he had many. He was extremely happy to reunite with his old friend, Woody Strode. Although they hadn't worked together since The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance in 1962. The 2 men had a genuine friendship that lasted from the point that they originally shot that film. Most of the movie was shot in the desert outside of Las Vegas, so the cast and crew stayed in Las Vegas hotels during the shoot. It's been reported that their nightly antics included dangling nude showgirls out of their hotel room windows, and also firing prop shotguns and shooting arrows into a Las Vegas landmark. A famous story goes that one night Woody Strode and Lee Marvin decided that they had had enough of Vegas Vic, the renowned neon cowboy at the Pioneer Club. So they took a prop bow and blew out old Howdy Partner with one well-aimed steel-tipped arrow shot through their hotel window. They knew that the police would arrive pretty quickly, especially since they had been raising hell on the Strip for the previous several nights. The police quickly showed up, and their antics should have landed them in jail, but Lee Marvin's star status apparently kept them all out of serious trouble. Now, it's said that Burt Lancaster and Lee Marvin didn't get along very well at all during the filming of the movie, and this was basically due to Marvin's alcoholism, which was making him really unreliable and difficult at the time of filming. This infuriated Lancaster. The director was so concerned about it that he really had to intervene and kind of calm things down, because he feared that Burt Lancaster might do something to really hurt Lee Marvin. He really thought he might throw him off of one of those mountains in the desert. The entire shoot of the movie was plagued by many complications. Some of those included rain, snow, sleet, the blazing sun, intense desert heat, and even a flash flood. As I said earlier, many of the scenes were filmed in the Coachella Valley and around Death Valley, and the train scenes were shot on the Eagle Mountain Railroad, which is a private, isolated rail spur that's located in the desert about 50 miles east of Indio, California. It's a 52-mile line that was owned by Kaiser Steel Corporation and was used to haul iron ore until 1986. The movie makes extensive use of the retired Great Western steam locomotive number 75, which stands in for both an American and a Mexican locomotive. It was built in 1909 for the Great Western Railway in Colorado, and it was eventually retired from service in 1965. It was then purchased for movie-making purposes, and for the next 34 years made appearances in many well-known films. Eventually, number 75 was sold to the Heber Valley Railway in Heber City, Utah in 1999. The cast listing of this film is a strange one. At the very beginning of the film, it's unusual because the billing appears completely out of order. Lee Marvin is shown first, demonstrating a machine gun, while his name superimposes on the screen. Robert Ryan is billed next over a sequence in which he knocks down a man for punching a horse. Then Woody Strode is shown subduing an unruly prisoner that he just brought in to a frontier town. And finally, Burt Lancaster's name appears over a humorous scene with Lancaster in bed with another man's wife, then him hurriedly escaping down a street after being interrupted by the furious husband. Lancaster actually has top billing, but he is billed under the other professionals as a visual punchline at the top of the film. Then at the movie's conclusion, he is listed first over Marvin, Ryan, and Strode as they ride toward the camera. The success of the movie led to calls from the studio for a sequel, but they only thought about doing it with the 4 principal actors involved in the film. And this was because of the fiasco that surrounded the sequel to The Magnificent Seven, where only Yul Brynner returned to that film. However, all the principals in this film had a full filming schedule. By the time any space could be cleared, Robert Ryan's health due to lung cancer made it impossible for him to perform the physical work necessary for the movie. After his death in 1973, all plans for a sequel were completely scrapped. Now, Claudia Cardinale, the beautiful girl in this film, steps up to the plate and helps everybody out. Because during the filming of the scene where Maria attempts to escape through a canyon wired with dynamite, Miss Cardinale's stunt double was badly injured during an explosion during this filming sequence. So much so that she was hospitalized in very bad shape. Cardinale, who had never ridden a horse before and didn't even know really how to get on one, hopped up on a horse and performed the stunt herself, and this was for the final cut of the film. She escaped from it completely uninjured. The movie received 3 Oscar nominations and an enthusiastic critical reception. If you've never seen it, take the time to watch it, and if you have seen it, it's always a fun one to re-watch multiple times. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll continue to chase the classics.